All right, we are live today, and thank you all for joining us, whether you're watching us live or it's morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever that is. We're glad that you could join. I'm here today with Naomi Piper-Pell. Naomi is the Vice Chair of the Sacramento City Youth Commission, one of its more outspoken members, I believe. We've heard her before, and we'll continue to hear from her. As we may be joined also by Lindy Lane, who is works in the city manager's office and is head of all of our youth policy. As usual, what I'd like to do is take just a couple of minutes to talk about what we did at the city council last night, which I think was actually monumental in a lot of ways. We have been working on homeless issues, as people know, for a long time. For me, it goes back to the first $1 million that we put into Sacramento Steps Forward, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, creating a position in the city manager's office for homelessness. That's Emily Halkin, who's done a fabulous job. And then also piecemealing programs. We're not a social service agency. As a city, we don't have distinct funding for homelessness. But over the last few years, with really the leadership of the mayor, we have done much, much more, and resources have become available to us to do a very wide array of services. Last night, we okayed $63 million in an initiative that covers, again, a range of services, a range of ways to support folks who are unhoused here in Sacramento. We know that problem has been critical and has gotten worse or amplified by COVID, probably a 20% increase since then. And if you're driving under the freeway or up Highway 80 or in the River District, you've certainly seen this. As a community, we have an obligation, I think, a moral obligation to take care of our neighbors. And these are our neighbors for so many reasons. So we were able last night, again, to do $63 million. That covers shelters, it covers small homes, tiny homes. It covers rental assistance for up to 1,000 people. We may need more than that. That's some of our CARES money. But everything we did will go into implementation very soon. We're close to opening the shelter in Meadowview, which will be for women only. And then moving forward, hopefully in 6 to 7 months, opening the shelter on Broadway and the WX Freeway, where we know so many folks are living in encampments right there. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that we had enough resources to actually move forward. It's a combination of federal money, state money, local money, and private dollars that have been raised by the mayor on this. So with that, I'm going to turn to Naomi. Thank you for being on with us. We really appreciate it. Can you give us a little 3-minute bio? My feeling is until we know people's stories, it's difficult to really create relationships and get things done. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Hi, Lindy. How are you?
Hi, Lindy. Hi, I'm Naomi Piper-Pell, like Councilmember Schenirer said. I'm the Vice Chair of the Sacramento Youth Commission. I've been serving for almost 2 years. I'm also now a junior at Rio Americano High School. I have been working on the Youth Commission with my fellow commissioners on a wide range of issues since I've been serving. A lot of workforce development issues, as we've seen with COVID-19, that has, those issues have become exacerbated, and we're working with COVID funding to make sure that our peers and our students can get the employment opportunities that they need. We've also been working more generally on youth representation in government. The Youth Commission is definitely the first step, but I've been working with Councilmember Schener's office even before COVID to make sure that youth have seats on other city commissions. Another big issue we've been working on is education, mental health, all sorts of things. And we've been definitely getting a lot of good support from the City Council with funding, and we've had really good meetings with them. We just had a joint meeting a few months back to talk about how we should distribute this money to best benefit our youth in our city, and I hope we can continue that work. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you, and thanks for being here again. Lindy, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. The way we're just starting off is a little bit of a bio about yourself, if you could do that. Kind of how you got to where you are and what you do for the city would be terrific.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Jay. Hi, Naomi. So a little bit about me. I actually graduated Highlands High School at a time where McClellan Air Force Base was really the economic base of that community. And when I was in high school, the base started shutting down. So I really was able to kind of live and see the decline of the community, when you take the economic base away from it, and really see how, the lack of opportunities really impacted my peers. After high school, I attended Sac State and graduated right at the height of the recession, which was a little challenging, but I graduated with a degree in history. And at the time, I was working in property management to put myself through college. So I'm proud to say that I did that, right? I successfully paid for college, put myself through college, and graduated with no debt, which was kind of a big feat, as well as being the first person in my family with a degree. So, it being the height of the recession, I started volunteering as a mentor for a neighborhood-based youth service nonprofit. And it really ignited in me just, this idea that, a trusted adult in a young person's life can make all the difference. It could change the entire trajectory of a young person's life. So it kind of planted that seed. And I just started looking for jobs in the nonprofit field. It was a huge sector switch for me, really had nothing to do with the degree that I got. Got hired on with California Coalition for Youth here in Sacramento, which is a statewide advocacy nonprofit, really focusing on homeless youth issues. Did that for several years, applied for and was selected for the National Urban Fellowship Program, which enabled me, it actually took me to New York for school and placed me with the city of Indianapolis working on the My Brother's Keeper initiative in 2015. And that really opened my eyes to multi-sector collaboration and how, that needle moving approach in communities can be extremely impactful. After grad school, I landed in the city of Oakland, and I was working on their youth development and leadership programming there, and really just, noticed this kind of need that I saw both in Indy, I saw it in Oakland, where there's a lot of resources coming out of different departments and divisions of a city, but they're not really as coordinated as they should. So when I saw this position that really, I have to say, Councilmember Jay Schenirer was the pioneer of creating my current position with the city of Sacramento, which is largely just that. It's a position where, it's all about kind of building the cohesiveness of all of the intersecting, priorities and systems that touch young people within the city. So I have been here for 2 years now, and I'll stop there.
Great, thank you. That's terrific. And we love having you, and we appreciate all the work trying to bring all these pieces together and create some coherence out of the policies that we have. Let me start with Naomi. And I know you represent a lot of young people, and you are out there in the field with them. Tell us about the number one, number two issues for young people these days, particularly in light of COVID and everything that's going on.
Yeah, so definitely. Like I said, I am now a junior in high school, and I just started school last week. So I can definitely say that the number one issue right now is education, and not only being able to, have the technology and having the Wi-Fi access to go to your virtual classes, but also the kind of support that you would get when you went on campus to school. Mental health support, even just being around your friends, things like that, that network isn't there anymore. So we're really trying to work with our community partners to make sure that youth who are now back in school or are going back to school in the next few weeks have all those tools that they had when they were on campus, and then building on that to, make sure that everybody is where they need to be, and, it's equitable as well to make sure more underserved communities have access to technology and Wi-Fi and all the services as everybody else does. And our second biggest priority, I would definitely say, is youth workforce, like I was saying. I can just say that, my friends have had such, big issues trying to get internships, getting employed, things like that. And it's really, it's a big hurdle to jump over. We're getting cars now. We're starting to save up for college and things like that. And not being able to get a job, even just making minimum wage, is just a huge issue. And we're trying to make sure that the city can provide good paid internship opportunities, as well as our community partners can promote, those kind of jobs for our youth.
So let me ask you a question. You mentioned youth mental health, which I know is an issue, and the survey results that I've seen show that 65% of young people surveyed didn't know who to call if they had a challenge with their mental health, and about the same number, if they did have someone to call, they would want it to be a peer.
Mm-hmm.
Does that ring true for you, those two numbers? Is that kind of what you're seeing in your neighborhoods, your school?
Absolutely. And I think the issue isn't necessarily a lack of mental health resources, it's a lack of knowing about them, like you said. And we have this great Youth Link website program that is available for kids to go on there. And I think I really want to stress the importance of peer-to-peer mental health discussions and things like that, and connecting over social media. I know there's quite a few of my peers who have been working with different organizations to start those conversations peer-to-peer.
Great. So pretty great segue for you there, Lindy. You want to talk about Youth Links a little bit and some of the initiatives coming out of the city?
Yeah, absolutely. So YouthLink, SAC.org, is a website that was really catalyzed, initially when COVID hit. I was part of a lot of different conversations. And one of the things that kind of was echoed over and over is just, the crazy amount of resources that are kind of being shared with us, particularly now, because that's an easy way for folks to really, feel like they're providing a level of support, which is sharing resources, which is amazing. But it can be very overwhelming, right? And this, at the same time, a lot of our providers were quickly, kind of making the pivot to virtual programming. So there was this need to really centralize and create, a centralized location where young people and their families can access the bevy of resources and information that are out there. So what we are doing is we are curating the information specific for young people in Sacramento and their families. There is currently a section right now that is has specifically COVID related resources, but largely even, once we get past COVID, the goal is that this will serve as a tool for the community as, the go-to source for finding supports and opportunities for young people in Sacramento.
So if I'm a young person, and God help us that we will be over COVID, hopefully fairly soon. But if I'm looking for internships, is that where I would go? If I'm looking for mental health support, what's kind of the range of services that will be provided, or not provided, but that will be linked to within this?
Yeah, so currently there are some resources on internships. There's quite a few resources on mental health right now. But largely this site is really going to be as successful as our youth service providers are submitting their information to make it available for young people and their families. So that was a good opportunity for me to just plug that and say, if you're a youth service provider and you're listening to this, please go to youthlink.org. And if you go to the Submit Resource tab, all of the instructions are there for you to submit program resources and make it available on the website. And we will be launching a really comprehensive kind of outreach campaign in the next probably 3 weeks or so. So yeah.
Okay, and maybe Lindy, if you could talk about some of the things that we're doing that are COVID related with youth. We did this joint meeting with the City Council and the Youth Commission, and Naomi, I'd love to hear your kind of debrief on that meeting, how you felt about it. Maybe we can start with there, and then maybe Lindy, if you could talk about some of the initiatives that actually came out of that meeting that we're working on now and that you put together as well. So Naomi, I will just tell you my impression was that you all did a fabulous job. You were well prepared. You'd done your homework, and I think that the council all appreciated what you did and how you did it. But what was your reaction, or maybe the reaction of some of the other youth commissioners?
Well, we were really excited to be invited. We had kind of been on a little bit of a hiatus because COVID kind of canceled all of our meetings. So we were really excited to just hop back into it. We did a lot of prep. We worked together very well. We made sure we had all of our points outlined. We made sure to work with our adult allies to just get our points out on the table. And after the meeting, we have been, working together within these two buckets, two ad hocs really, one for mental health and education, and another one with job resources and programming for youth. And so we have been, I'm not sure about the mental health ad hoc, but I know my ad hoc, sorry, my sister's in the kitchen. We have been just hopping right into it, reviewing community proposals. We're starting that on Friday to make sure that our community partners can have the funding they need to provide job resources and things like that. So we are really grateful to the council for reaching out to us to have those conversations that need to be had with our youth and bringing us to the table as well.
Great. Lindy, do you want to talk about a couple of things that are coming out of your office and out of YPSI, our youth division around young people?
Yeah, for sure. So that joint meeting on June 9th, obviously it was very youth focused. And there were actually several, kind of specific programs and proposals that were kind of put on the table and that both council and the youth commission endorsed to invest some CARES funding into in the short term. So one of the areas
for those who don't know, CARES funding is our federal stimulus dollar as a response to COVID.
Correct.
Sorry.
Yep. No worries. And one meeting before that, there were actually two pretty significant youth programs that got approved as well. One of them being the SAC Youth Works, which is largely a citywide youth work-based learning program that really kind of enables young people, very low barrier to engage young people in service learning, right? So there's a lot of projects right now that are really responding to COVID. And so the idea was, for neighborhood-based providers to engage young people, plug them into some of these service opportunities that already exist, provide them a stipend, because as we know, many young people in their households are, being impacted economically by everything going on, and provide them 40 hours of training on workforce readiness, life skills, 21st century skills. So that is actually coming to a conclusion this week. It's been very successful. We were able to engage the target number of young people that we set out for, which was 400 young people. So we were able to do that. And we are working on the extension of that program, which, we're going to apply lessons learned. It's going to look slightly different for the fall, just to account for the fact that young people are now returning to school and, some of the expectations will look a little bit different. So that's coming down the pipe. We have this, SAC Learning Initiative, the Summer Learning Initiative, right? SLI. That was the other one that came out. And we're actually kind of pivoting from there as well to do something slightly similar during the fall. And that's something that got approved last night, right, Jay? The SAC class? Yeah. So that one I'm really proud of. Youth Parks and Community Enrichment. That's a prime example of them being able to really pivot very quickly and address some emerging needs of the community right now. So what that is going to do is provide in-person academic support for students at city facilities. And that, I believe, is going to start in the next couple of weeks. So that's a huge one as well. Those are the few that are sticking out to me. Mental health obviously is overlaying all of this, right? So there was definitely a proposal that came up on June 9th at the joint meeting around peer-to-peer mental health training and also just kind of mental health awareness, right, for young people. So that is being built into the work-based learning initiative for the fall. And social emotional learning is a really focal point for the SAC class initiative as well.
Okay. No, that's great. I think there's a lot going on there. And I want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing and your staff and the folks in YPSI. We're trying to do an awful lot with a fair amount of money in a very short period of time.
Right.
And the major challenge there, people might have seen that the city got $89 million in CARES funding as a COVID response. The biggest challenge with all of that is all of the money needs to be spent and services rendered by the end of the calendar year. So while we're trying to put together these responses, particularly around the mental health and the training that we want to do for young people, getting it done, and then what do we do January 1st? We know that if a young person has some mental health issues, they don't just disappear after New Year's. So we need to really figure out how we can do that. I know that we're working also on an initiative around mental health and the arts to bring in artists. We know that can help and try to get that done as well. That'll come to the city manager, I think, this week. And I want to thank we have lots of partners. We have lots of partners in the community, or the community-based organizations. Also, SCOE, the County Office of Education, is working with us on the arts, and then the school districts on class, which is really to, I think we need to get young people out of their houses if at all possible. The distance learning piece, it can just be overwhelming. I'm making that assumption, Naomi, you can confirm or not, but sitting in front of a computer screen from 9 to 3 or whatever it is, it's not the healthiest thing in the world. So how do we do more? One thing we're doing, and I'll just tell you, Lindy, and if there are others that we can work with, is where each council member received $50,000 in CARES money to do COVID response. We're working with 5 organizations to do after-school programming, again, to get people out. So soccer, Street Soccer USA, Asian Resources, Square Root Academy, a couple of others, and with snacks to do programming in the afternoons. So where we will have young people coming to our community centers to get their support during the day. Hopefully they will stay and be able to participate in these other things as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been interesting because everything has to go through our attorneys to make sure it's eligible and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of bureaucracy involved in spending money, so it's not the easiest.
Yes, there is.
So maybe
it work.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe Lindy, if you could talk a little bit about your vision for young people in Sacramento. Where do we want to get to for this? And then Naomi, I would ask you the same question of what should we be doing, and where's your place in this kind of ecosystem that we all live in? Lindy, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. So, I think if we were to look at the last 5 years, and maybe even a little bit longer than that, I think that, the city of Sacramento has really done a lot to really step up to the plate and invest in young people. I think if we were to look at it, holistically and map it out, we would see that there's been a huge increase in investment and a huge focus. And a lot of that, thank you, council member, for your, pioneering work on that. But I think where we're at right now is, and we have a great foundation for this, right? We have the citywide youth development plan. We have my position. We have the youth division. We have a lot of elements that we need. But I think where we're at right now is we need to pull it all together, right? So we need some sort of forced funding or resources that is going to enable us to do that. And so in my mind, I think probably the best way forward is always going to be funding, right? So a dedicated youth fund, I think, is what we need. And I think we need to be very specific with how we're utilizing that fund. I think, in my research and what I've seen over the years, I think we have the opportunity and we have the necessary ingredients to have a successful multi-sector collaborative that is focusing on cradle to college / career for our young people. But, it requires a rigorous approach to the methodology, right? Rather than just throwing around this word collective impact, it really is an approach. It's an approach that requires intentionality. And, I think some of the other elements are we just have to look at young people and how we're addressing their needs and their healthy development, from a holistic, right, from the whole child standpoint. And I think the way that you do that is through Cradle to College initiative. But then also simultaneously, I think, there's a way for us to, as a city, adopt a resolution or initiative that really approaches community development with the child at the center, right? And, there's a lot of intersections between the two things that I'm talking about. Mainly we're talking about addressing the social determinants of health, right? Because everything I'm talking about, you have to apply the equity lens. There has to be like a targeted universalism approach to it, right? Because typically what happens if you're targeting the most vulnerable, marginalized part of your community and you invest in those in that community, then it's going to benefit everyone. You know what I mean? So that's the true definition of equity. And a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, yeah, everybody's boats don't have holes, right? So for me, those are the two main things. And I think, just to kind of call it out and be definitive in what I'm saying, I think we need dedicated resources. I think we have the ingredients. I think we know what we need to do. We know what approach we need to take, but we just need the resources to do it.
Great. Naomi, what do you think?
I would say the exact same thing that Lindy said. It's all about money. And as youth, one of our biggest issues is kind of connecting between high school and beyond, whether it is graduating high school, going to college, graduating high school, going to technical school, or just going out in the workforce. And I don't think that there is enough option. There's not enough funding. I don't think that there is enough encouragement from our adult allies to make those decisions. And I think that we really do need to apply the equity lens with everything that we do. And I think that we do need to focus on alleviating poverty and making sure that everybody has the same access to health resources. We've seen the disparities with the COVID-19 crisis. And we just need to make sure that everybody is allowed to be on the same playing field and that everybody gets the same resources and that they can go out into their communities, not just get the resources for themselves, but go out into their communities and distribute those resources as well. And I think as youth, one of the biggest things that we can do is continue to speak up when we see inequities in our city. And hopefully the city will keep listening to us and keep letting us into these discussions. And I think also a big thing, the civic engagement piece as well. The Youth Commission is such an awesome board, and just keep encouraging people to apply for the commission and then keep including the commission in these discussions as well. And, talking about the census, talking about voting, all these things, the piece between the city government and our schools, and really just making sure that they are unified in, battling everything, health, poverty, education, and just making sure everybody has the right funding for all those issues.
Right. Well, two quick responses, and then we'll get to the final question here is we will be coming with a resolution that kind of redefines public safety to include youth and prevention activities. I hope to come to the Youth Commission on the 14th of September and then take it to our Law and Legislation Committee on the 15th of September and hopefully get that passed by council, which really lays out, Lindy, a lot of what you were just talking about. How do we bring this together? And then the other thing is the mayor's proposal around changing our governance system does include money both for investment in communities, and probably about $10 million of that would be for young people. So potentially a dedicated fund there as well. We just need to flesh out how it would be, in some of the things you said, how it would be spent, who makes those decisions, all of that. So the last question I have, and I told this to Naomi before we started, is, so Lindy, I'm going to give you a little time to think about it. If you were me, we could change places, and you knew you had an issue and you had 4 other votes on the city council to get something passed, what would that be? So what would that action be? Naomi, you want to start?
So I was thinking about this a lot, and there are so many things that we need to tackle. And, going back to the funding piece, I think we really do need to divest from the Sacramento Police Department and put, that money back in community violence prevention and, making sure that kids graduate from high school, making sure that our schools have the right funding and everything like that. And I think that when we do that, things like poverty will get a lot better, and that we see the violence in our communities and the homelessness in our communities get a lot better, and will kind of eliminate the need for the Sacramento Police Department.
Okay. Lindy?
Yeah, so I feel like I kind of addressed this already, but I'm going to go ahead and piggyback as well. I mean, Jay, you just expressed that, you're putting forward this resolution about redefining public safety and how, within that resolution and plan, it does kind of outline how we pull all of these things together, right? How do we create a more cohesive approach that brings all of the appropriate parties to the table that are required to really move the needle for our young people in our communities? So I would just, if I had all the votes, I would just go ahead and put that through.
Okay. Well, we'll look for your help on that. So Naomi, thank you so much for this half an hour. I think it was really enlightening. I know we are in good hands, Naomi. When you take over the city, we have no problem with that. And I'm sure it will happen sooner rather than later. Lindy, appreciate all of the work that you do with all the folks, really taking care of our young people and moving the needle forward on that one as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, and we'll look next week. I believe Howard Chan, our city manager, will be with me next week. We should have some interesting discussion there. Have a good day and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.